I'm sorry, but Bulls fans should feel extremely nervous about Zach LaVine leaving their team. He just signed with Clutch Sports before a contract year. Whoa, settle down. This could be no big deal. I mean, John Wall signed with Clutch before staying in DC. Draymond stayed with Golden State. But oh yeah, there's what LaVine said about the Bulls.
I just want my respect. I think that's the main thing.
Cameron? Blink if you understand me.
He just wants respect? That doesn't sound like someone who's 100% happy. Look, I know that the Bulls did what they could to build a team around LaVine, but they're not a contender. As Zach has gotten better and better, he probably feels like, okay, now it's time to start winning, now that I've established myself as an all-star. What happens if he wants to win right now, and who should the Bulls realistically trade Zach LaVine for? Yo, it's Casey, this is AM Hoops, hit subscribe. And I know people in the comments are gonna argue with me, but yeah, Zach signing with Clutch in a contract year is a huge deal. It reminds me of Anthony Davis signing with them.
It was just for where I am right now, my career and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, Pelicans fans rightly freaked out about that. Bulls fans should feel the exact same. And I'm not saying that LaVine is going to be a Laker, okay, but Clutch's reputation is they get their players the absolute most they can, and they'll walk. They don't care. So the Bulls could have signed Zach already to a huge extension, but instead they signed free agents. That does give them a better chance to win, but it also means that Zach will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of next season. That's the gamble they made. Instead of locking down their all-star now, they said, no, we're going to use that money to build out the roster. And I love that move, actually. I mean, you know how players will bet on themselves before a contract year? This is the team betting on themselves. However, I hated what they did with the money. They completely overpaid DeMar DeRozan and gave so much to get him. DeMar is not a championship level piece. He's not even good enough to be a number 2 on a championship team. We've seen this in the East, but they paid him like that. It reminds me of what the Knicks used to do that made them awful for 20 years. They would overpay players who weren't that good, who were probably just a big name, and they would send a lot of draft picks to get them too, which would mess up their present and their future. Yes, I like Lonzo Ball. Alex Caruso will be a decent role player, but if you're betting on yourself this way, you messed up. And I do want to make it clear, I like DeMar DeRozan a lot. Not a bad player at all. He's a really good player, but not for that kind of money, and not for Thaddeus Young and 3 draft picks. They could have spent that money in so many smarter ways. So if this plan fails, and I think it will, then what happens next? Either LaVine chooses to sign with another team in free agency, or the Bulls will realize that and then trade Zach LaVine before the deadline. I think the best option would be to trade for Ben Simmons. I really do. Think about how good that young core would be. Ben Simmons, Lonzo Ball, Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Alex Caruso. Nikola Vucevic is a stretch 5, so that's not a huge concern. I also think that Chicago is the kind of market that Ben would like, right? Because obviously he wants a glamorous franchise in a big city. That's Chicago. On the Sixers, LaVine is like a fantastic fit. He and Joel Embiid are like perfect complements on offense, and yet Zach's defense sucks. But I think being on a team with a defensive player of the year type guy is huge. LaVine on the Sixers makes them a contender, and it is a backup plan if Damian Lillard does not demand a trade. I mean, you could make the argument Zach LaVine is about to be the next Devin Booker. I think people respected Booker's game, but he wasn't considered like a winner because obviously he had never proven that. And I think the narrative right now for Zach LaVine is similar, but maybe even worse. I mean, between the Timberwolves and the Bulls, people act like Zach is just a good stats, bad team guy. And honestly, I was in that camp before last season because ever since last season started, he's just been different. I mean, he actually looked decent on defense, and he was legit one of the best players for Team USA in the Olympics. Zach feels right now like he's about to take a huge leap, but I don't think the Bulls are the franchise to get him there. In fact, I think them being a top 4 seed is a joke. They'll probably be like 5 or 6, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had to go through the play-in. Okay, top 4 is basically set. So I know people are going to argue with me in the comments. It's basically set. Nets, Sixers, Bucks, Heat. We know those 4, okay? And then competing for 5 will be Celtics, Hawks, Knicks, Bulls. And all those other teams have a core that's been together for a little while. Chicago really revamped their roster. And so they're going to have to figure it out at first to gel and have chemistry. And doing that will have them fall behind naturally. I think their biggest problem is defense. Because yes, Zach improved some, but look, they had one of the worst defenses in the NBA last year. And their core is Vooch, DeRozan, and LaVine. I mean, that is horrible, okay? I love Billy Donovan as a coach, but if they're in a bad place by the trade deadline, they should trade Zach. And I know that would take a lot of guts, okay? And it probably wouldn't be a good look for Arturas Karnisovas. But remember, he is a clutch client. They don't care if the team gets screwed. He'll leave in free agency to a contender. And then the Bulls are in huge trouble. They gave up 2 first-round picks for Vooch, 1 more for DeRozan. And from a money standpoint, yeah, sure, they would free up $20 million in cap space if Zach leaves, which is good. But it happens to be like the worst summer for free agents. That's bad. They built this whole team trying to convince Zach to re-sign this next offseason. But if he leaves, that whole plan failed. I know Bulls fans are going to hate this video, but guys, just look at the facts, okay? Your team's not going to be a contender. Your best player just signed with the most ruthless agency in sports. And instead of losing him for nothing, you could get back Ben Simmons and build with that. Or they could trade for someone else, honestly. I mean, I think that every team should be looking at this Zach LaVine situation and treating it like we've seen with other stars, like Bradley Beal. A million rumors. Zach LaVine does not get the attention that he deserves for how great he's been recently. Yes, I happen to think he would be a really good fit on the Sixers, but what about the Knicks? Or the Mavericks, or the Clippers, or the Pelicans? I think all of those teams would be amazing with Zach LaVine. But I think the Sixers actually have the assets to get it done. And I think that Zach would have a great chance to win a chip in Philly. When he hits free agency, the Bulls are going to have his full bird rights. So what they can do is sign him to his max. That way, another team can trade for him without cap space, and he still gets paid. I mean, we tend to think about like the teams who are, you know, most active in free agency are the ones with cap space. That's not true. Other teams can sign big name free agents through a sign and trade. We have seen it before, and a lot of teams should be targeting Zach LaVine, like the Knicks. And this right here is a video that explains how they totally shaped their entire offseason to make a big swing for like a Zach LaVine, and it's brilliant.